let's start putting in some numbers. For example, today's date, let's just put in today. Current age 25, retirement age 65, annual salary 50,000, 3, and I'm going to put in percent, which is one way to do it, or you could put in 0.04, but then you'd have to go back and you'd have to format that as a percent. Either way works. I tend to like using just the putting in the 8, for example, and then typing percent because I keep my hands on the keyboard. The original investment, let's say it's $1,000. While we're here, let's format these percentages by holding the control button down and dragging over the percentages, and let's make those show 2 decimal places. Our salary and our original investment, if you notice here, as I put in 1,000, it thought I was still doing percentages, so it thought that was a 1,000%. That's really not, so let's change this to be currency. And you see it thought that that was $10. I need to change that back to $1,000. And another thing while we're here, why don't I just show this? I've got this formatted how I want, and I can go up to Format Painter. So I click on the format that I like, click Format Painter, and then choose what else I want formatted the same way, which in this case was annual salary. And now that that's too wide for the column, I have to drag the column width over a little bit so that you can see the full number now that's been formatted. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a lookup table. One thing you'll know is as you hire on with a new employer, at least in the United States, they have something called a 401k plan where you can put money into a savings account pre or post-tax, depending on the type of 401k. And then your employer will also put in some money for you. So I'm going to create a table. This is a table that you might see at your new employer that shows you how they are going to match your contribution. So let's say you put in 1%, maybe your employer will put in 1%. What that means, 1% of your salary. So for example, if you put in 1% of $50,000, that's $500, the employer will also put in 1% of $50,000, $500. So in total, what will be contributed to your savings account would then be $1,000 per year. Next one, 2%, 3%, 4%, and 5%. Let's say for the 2 and 3%, I'll go Control C, so I shift and held down and drag to the next row. Those are all the same, but maybe at 4%, they're only going to put in 3.5% of your salary. So in other words, they're only matching 50 cents on the dollar above 3%. And then at 5%, it'll be 4%, so same idea. We're going to format all these to be 2 decimals so that we can recognize that. And I'd like to highlight all of these data variables. So I'm going to hold the control button down and I'm going to drag over all these variables which the user needs to input. And I'll go up to the home font, and I want to change this to be maybe a green, and I'll put a box around these, maybe a dark border box around these, just to designate what the user needs to input. So I think those are pretty good, but as you can tell here, I did not manually, I didn't do this. I didn't say, oh, it's 4%, okay, well, and I personally look in the table, say, oh, okay, that's 3.5%, and then hard code that number as 3.5%. Why would I not want to do that? Well, because it takes my time, and I don't want to take my time doing things that I can get the computer to do for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to use what's a new function, which is called a VLOOKUP. And what the VLOOKUP does is it will look up 4% in this table under the employee column, find where 4% is, and then return the corresponding employer value. Now if this were 4.2%, it says, is 4.2% greater than 1, greater than 2, greater than 3, greater than 4? Yes, it is. Is it greater than 5? No, it's not. So it goes back to the last one and returns the approximate match. It's kind of like your grades. You know, if you had 91% and the next grade higher is 93%, you would get the A minus at 91% rather than the next highest. But we will do a lookup here to get that number to type in for us.